traditional customs and practices. These include traditional healing, circumcision, polygamy, indigenous music, and rituals. The majority of these people spoke Sepedi, and Sepedi is the northern, it is the northern Sesotho in South Africa due to the geographical and historical nature. The arrival of the Berlin missionaries in 1834 in Limpopo province brought about Christianity and education to disseminate European culture. This brought about intrigue and confusion in communities. The primary aim of the Berlin mission in South Africa was specifically to investigate the Berlin's mission influence on the Bapedi way of life. Among the missionaries was Reverend Johannes Winter or Venter, who adopted and embraced the Bapedi way of life. This resulted in his superiors expelling him in 1889. Now in 1890, the same Reverend Johannes Winter and Reverend Martina Sibushane Mohanedi, a local middle-aged man, established our church in the name of Lutheran Bapedi Church. I'm going to address it as LBC every time. That's the acronym that we use for this church. Let me also speak about now the influence, missionary influence in the Limpopo province. Reverend Winter and Reverend Mohanedi were both educated through missionary schooling. They had the same thinking of being independent of the Berlin Mission Society while keeping Christianity as a form of control and enlightenment for the locals. The young Lutheran Bapedi Church observed both African traditions and Christian values. This was inclusive of accommodative of the locals' practices. As a result of this church gained popularity across various villages. Christianity had already touched base in other areas of South Africa through churches such as, of course, obviously, Roman Catholic Church, your Dutch Reformed Church, your ZCC, Zion Christian Church, and other Lutheran churches as controlled by the Berlin Missionary Society. The Berlin missionaries had such influence in the formation of LBC as an independent church. They supported the LBC institution in various ways, including contributions of literature, resources, and influence and finances. This is despite the fact that Reverend Winter was barred from the organization. The LBC was independent from the Berlin Mission Society. There was a traditional and Christian fusion that influenced the character of LBC. The aim of the missionaries was to totally influence the African people to completely depend on their norms and standards. The independence of LBC brought about tensions between BMS, and that's your Berlin Mission Society, and LBC. The independence of LBC brought about tensions between BMS and LBC. Although the two reverends that I've just mentioned were successful in fusing the Christian and traditional or local practices and beliefs, Reverend Winter was being cautious of the traditions of the Bapedi people. Reverend Mohanedi also had a primary influence in using both Christianity and tradition to mellow the LBC into a successful church in the 19th century. This created a sense of inclusiveness among the locals as their traditional practices were somewhat accommodated by the Lutheran Bapedi Church. The Berlin Mission Director, Hermann Theodor Wangenmann, 1818 to 1894, led the objectives of the Berlin Missionary Society. It was largely accepted that the Lutheran Bapedi Church was independent from BMS. The LBC was accommodated by the mother body, BMS, despite the fact that this was against their mission. Indigenization was taught in order to create and maintain independence. This could not deter the LBC from growing from strength to strength. The work of Mohanedi and Winter gained popularity, and it can be deduced that it is such ideals that created a collaboration between Europe and African ideals. This train of thought is indicative in the pursuit of a united post-apartheid South Africa to date. Let me come now to the growth of the Lutheran Bapedi Church. The Limpopo province hosted the Lutheran Bapedi Church until it spread through many parts of the country. The closest province to Limpopo is Mpumalanga. Especially for, I'm referring to Mpumalanga because today this province is known as Mpumalanga, Limpopo and Mpumalanga. I'm not talking about the old terms because it might cause confusion. The common language spoken in these two provinces, Mpumalanga and Limpopo, just a second, I missed my point here. Oh, thanks. The common language spoken by the Lutheran Bapedi gradually spread through this province into Tafelkop and Monsterless. These are the two areas that were there at the time in the Mpumalanga province. Gauteng province followed also and followed the two mentioned provinces, and the spread now was extended into Northwest province. In the villages such as, and that's where I stay, Bafokeng, Mabiskrol, Kabane as an urban area, and this soon caught the Lutheran Bapedi Church back. The other remaining provinces did not become part and parcel of the Lutheran Bapedi Church because of their language difference, a common barrier to entry for Lutheran Bapedi Church in non-Pedi speaking communities. The Setswana language could be understood by Bapedi people, and it was therefore easy for LBC to infiltrate the Botswana communities. In other words, when somebody speaks Setswana and somebody speaks Pedi, one is able to understand the other. The advent of apartheid and its separate development policies resulted in what was called Bantustans, contributed to the segmentation of communities by language and culture, therefore making it easy for Bapedi and Tswana people to self-organize in the form of churches, schools, and societies. More Lutheran Bapedi churches formed largely as a result of movement due to employment, as well, and infiltrated into urban areas. In self-organizing, church members of various mainstream churches wore uniform indicative of their position in the church as well as their church affiliation in order to create a sense of identity within the church. I'm going to share the screen just to show you how we look like in terms of our logo as Lutheran Bapedi Church. I'm not sure, can I quickly share my screen there? I'm trying to, whoop. Just a second, my screen is now in a confused state.
Yeah, we are currently seeing your email program, your Outlook.
Yeah, I'm trying to. More positive recording, sound, optimize the video clip. It's not. Will let me go back and restart it so that it must come where. Just a second, Prof. Yeah, thank you very much. Can you see me now? Can you not see me, all of you?
Yeah, we like to listen to your words. We don't need.
Okay, but I'm trying to share my screen, but I'm not going to do that. Sorry? Can somebody assist there?
Go ahead. Fine.
No, it's not coming. It's not coming. No.
I think if you change to the other program now, it should work because you share your full screen, including whatever is visible.
Yeah, it's now. I'm not sure how to go back to that one. Maybe I must start from the beginning. Let me see this one. Selection, sound, mode, share, sound.
You can close the programs and minimize your screen on Zoom, and then open whatever you want to share before you can click share.
Say it again.
You will have to open whatever you want to share before you click share.
Share is not coming up. One participant can share the time. Yes. Now. Technology is beating me now.
So if you want to share slides, you will have to open your PowerPoint presentation first and then press on share the screen in Zoom. And if not, maybe you send me an email. It's Nora speaking. You send me an email and I can share the screen for you.
Please do that. Please do that.
Yes,
Remember, I sent you the presentation.
You only sent me your speech, but you didn't send me your presentation slides.
In the speech, there is also the part that I want to present now as I speak.
Okay,
present that speech, then I'll be able to take out what
Okay, then give me a second. I will be with you. But stop your screen sharing, please.
Okay.
I will stop it for you, no worries. I stopped it. Now we wait for Nora and then we can continue.
So this is what we have received from you. Is it this one you wanted to look at?
Correct. That's correct.
Yes. So where shall we start from the beginning?
Yeah,
Here?
but let's move up. Let's move up. Again, yes.
Here?
Yeah, we are there. That's right. That's where I am.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that it reads the advent of apartheid and its separate development policies, resulting in what was called Bantu stance, contributed to the segmentation of communities by language and culture. Therefore, make it easy for Bapedi and Botswana people to self-organize in the form of churches, schools, and societies. More Lutheran Bapedi churches formed largely as a result of movement that is due to unemployment, as well and infiltrated into urban areas. In self-organizing church, members of various mainstream churches wore uniform indicative of their positions in the church as well as their church affiliation in order to create a sense of identity within the church. Lift it up a little bit just to show them what am I talking about when we refer to the uniform. Take it a little higher again. Thank you very much. Now look at, thank you very much. This picture, Professor is very much acquainted to it. When they were at our church visiting that Sunday some years ago, this is one of the pictures that they took. Look at how the ladies look like. At the back there would be gentlemen, even though they may not be very visible. The attire was respected and brought about a dignity in a time when Black South African communities needed to self-actualize. Now, the Lutheran Bapedi Church members too donned their black and white church uniform with pride. This is also honorable in modern day Bapedi Lutheranism, that most members opt to be buried in it. The way it is accepted, the way it is appreciated. Now, the various urban and rural were led. Let me go back. Thank you. Thank you very much. The various urban and rural were led by their elected bishops. In other words, there was the north, south, east, west dioceses, which were led by the bishops, and these bishops. This practice of the bishops did not last long, because some bishops and their churches decided to be independent of the main office of Limpopo due to various reasons, including factionalism and finances, obviously, and other ones. Now, the following bishops, inter alia, which I want to mention here, form part of this change. I'm going to mention just but a few of them here. Bishop Musima, he was staying in Middelburg. Bishop Lekoba was staying in Witbank. Bishop Mochayana was staying in Venda. Venda is part of Limpopo. Now, in 1997, just for a record, Bishop Mochayana had impasse with the reverends under him. This caused the LBC under his leadership to split into two groups. The new group that emerged used the same LBC name in 1998, and it was led by Bishop Simon Gomba. To date, Gomba is the only bishop that has the registered certificate of the Lutheran Bapedi Church in South Africa. Furthermore, in 2015, the deans under Bishop Gomba also differed in certain respects, and they decided to form a splinter group as well. Gomba is now actually the leading bishop that holds the legal power of the name Lutheran Bapedi Church. Can I also compare now the two, European Lutheranism and Bapedi Lutheranism? Now, look at the European Lutheranism. Of course, you worship and believing in Jesus only, God and Jesus only, but look at the traditional one. They worship and believe God and their ancestors. In other words, at that time, the church was comfortable to have the two. In other words, believing God and as well as in their ancestors at that time. But the present status quo is such that the brass band, for instance, as accompaniment used in the Lutheran churches, in our case in South Africa, were playing indigenous instruments. But it goes with the singing of the church. It's just that the accompaniment used there is not this brass band, but in particular, it is the indigenous instruments. You see them singing while seated in the European areas, but in our area, when we sing, we use traditional dancing. Most of them stands up and dance in commensurating with the sound or the melody of the hymns. They don't have guilds in Europe. We have what we call guilds, and guilds would be your mothers' union, your youth group, your men's league, and so on and so on. All of them are there in our churches as South African churches, but they are not there in other areas like in Europe. At the clothes, people go to churches with their civilian clothes. But in our cases, we all are in our own uniform because we've got a meaning for a particular group. We've got an aim for a particular group all the time. Financial compensation is always received from the higher up echelons of the church. But in our case, everything is done pro bono, and I want to repeat that, it is done pro bono. We must also talk about now the Lutheran Bapedi Church, the latest Lutheran Bapedi Church now. Its present status. In terms of the church constitution, all of them that were drawn earlier were colonial and did not represent the aspirations of Christians in South Africa. In other words, what I'm trying to say is in the post-apartheid South Africa, Lutheran Bapedi Church took a pivot turn, but before that pivot turn, let me indicate that the constitutions at that time were more apartheid inclined than the latest ones that we have. Now, in the post-apartheid South Africa, the Lutheran Bapedi Church took a pivot turn and decided on what we call reimagining of the church. This was brought about by the new structures that South African finds itself in a democratic dispensation. The constitution and other general practices of the country came to a complete overhaul, and people also adapted to these changes. Now, in the imagining of the Lutheran Bapedi Church, we also have what we call Plan 2025. And Plan 2025 has got 3 pillars. In other words, the office of the bishop came up with this idea and sold it to the different communities of our church so that they can understand what his aspirations are about the church. They are having, this plan has got 3 pillars. So the first one is human welfare. The second one is church welfare. The third one is sustainability and growth. Now, if you look at the human welfare of the church, it contributes to better standard of living, improving individuals' quality of life and social well-being, reducing poverty in the community. In other words, the church makes it a point that in what it practices, it must look after the human welfare of the people. Whatever the church does must be such that it looks into the human welfare of the church. It will look into in many ways, financially and otherwise. But the first pillar addresses, in this case, welfare, human welfare. Apart from that, we also have church welfare. Church welfare here is collaboratively building a church community that is of our preference. In other words, the manner in which we assist the people here must be such that the church plays a role in looking after their lives, looking after their interests. We also say that upholding the Christian values. In other words, while we are doing this, we must not lose sight of our Christianism, must not lose sight of our Lutheranism. Therefore, must uphold the Christian values simultaneously while we are growing the church as a structure. Also, we must maintain a church that has entitlement. Of course, yes, as Lutherans will remain Lutherans. And therefore, we are entitled to this church, and we must also make sure that when we speak to our people, we teach them to be sure of their entitlement. We also are a congregation that holds up the vision and mission of the church. And we'll come to that later on as we see other pictures pertaining to the vision and mission of the church. Now, the last one would be sustainability and growth. Remember, a church must be sustainable, and it must have growth, and it must be sustainable, lest it will not be able to become the best church. We are using our optimal use of resources. The little that we have, we are using them to make sure that we sustain the church. We are also respecting our resources, because these resources are brought about by our previous forefathers and also the people who came before us. Therefore, we are respecting them, make sure that we take care of them at all costs. We treasure these assets. Of course, buildings as well are also our assets. We also treasure them. Achieving also inclusive growth. In other words, we grow inclusively, not only the priesthood, but also the church at large. You have continuous spirit of giving, inter alia 10% offering. In other words, in our churches, as we preach, we also preach 10%, where the people must contribute X amount of money, 10% in this case, to make sure that the church runs. Financials are monitored, and that you'll see when we talk about the structure of the church. We'll see how we monitor these things. The church also has got monitoring systems to be able to run. We're also respecting and upholding the church constitution. Now, in our reimagined Lutheran Bapedi Church, An LBC constitution that commemorates with the constitution. I've explained that in the beginning. I may not talk about it again. Let me go to the second bullet, where there are also constitutions of the other departments. The departments are like other guilds and policies are governed the other structures of the church. In other words, apart from the constitution of the church, we also have got small constitutions or policies that govern the structures. All these legislative policies will always know that they are not above the two most superior documents. That is, namely, the constitution of the LBC and the constitution of the country. The two must always be remembered and respected when the policies or constitutions of other guilds are considered. Given that the church leadership services the church without any compensation, they are inclined to seek alternative employment. Of course, the church does not have anybody who is assisting it financially. Therefore, the priests are given that opportunity to have alternative employment. It would be beneficial if the church receives sponsorship in order to service the already impoverished communities that require full-time committed leaders. Let me come to synods now. These are national gatherings. They are called synod councils. Take it a little lower. Oh, thanks. These are called synod councils. They are held quarterly. The last meeting is called Annual General Assembly and is held in August because it is the period at which our church started on the 24th of August, 1890. These are democratic meetings of the leaders where church matters are discussed at large. Now, the following slides that you see, the following pictures that you see in front of you here are also the emphasis on the issue of thank you very much, on the issue of reimagining Lutheran Bapedi Church. Look at our vision and mission there, the vision statement, pledging allegiance to Christ. That is our vision statement, and the pictures are painted in every church that we have in this country. Now, we're actually pledging allegiance to Christ. Of course, like all other Christians, but we are saying here in particular, we're pledging allegiance to Christ. And then the mission statement of how we go there is, it says, we, the leadership and congregation of the Lutheran Bapedi Church, pledge allegiance to Christ. How do we do that? We commit ourselves to respecting the Christian principles and values. We live by the greatest commandments of Christ, which is the most important one: love thy neighbor as you love thyself. Of course, we'll do everything through brothers keeping. And the last part of our vision would be, nothing is impossible, Dio volante. In other words, God willing, everything will happen and will be done. Now look at our organogram in terms of the present status. If you can make them a little bigger, I would appreciate that, please. The organogram. Shift to the organogram, please. Thank you very much. Now the organogram, look at it. The top structure there is the office of the bishop. And the office of the bishop consists of 3 persons: the bishop, the vicar general, who's actually the deputy bishop, and the secretary general. This office is the highest echelon of the church because is controlling the whole church system. Now, on the left-hand side, there is the word there, venerable office. That is the office that consists of all the people who are on retirement. Those who are on retirement because of age, those who are on retirement because of other reasons, they are in that office. And every time and again, when the church runs or when it takes up challenges, this office is referred to for advices. Now, on the right-hand side is the NAC. NAC stands for National Administrative Committee. This is a committee specifically on administration. Look at the right-hand side of that office. It has the PACs. PAC stands for parish administrative committee. In other words, these 4 that you see, they represent each diocese, north, south, east, west. All the 4 dioceses are controlled by the National Administrative Committee, but they're specifically dealing with issues of administration. Now, within this group, we also have got a financial committee in every group. In other words, the NEC pertains to, it has the chairperson, the deputy, secretary, the deputy, and the treasurer. Now, the treasurer of the NAC takes care of the 4 treasurers of the dioceses. And so it is with the parishes as you go down. Now, underneath the office of bishop, again, now directly here, we have got the priest council. In other words, this is the area where all the priests are participating. Now, every priest under his control, he's got in his parish all these 4 guilds that you see there. Your Mother's Union, your Saint Martin. Your Mother's Union are the senior members of the church, the female senior members of the church. Your mothers, your grannies, they're all found in that department. Now, underneath that one, we've got Saint Martin. Saint Martin is the group that is controlled also by the priest, but it consists of ladies who are not very old, but a little younger than those ones in the Mother's Union, because in most cases, when these discussions pursued every time, you find that the talk that is in the Mother's Union may not be the same as the talk in the St. Martin. That is why we've decided to do that. You also have got Women Fellowship. These are the 3rd group of ladies who are between the youngest of them all and the St. Martin group. They are called the Women Fellowship group. Now, we also have got Men's League. All the masculine species will be found in that group. And that excludes your youth, because youth are also found in the youth, the next one, the youth department. But all other guys who are above 35 years would be found in the Men's League. But in the youth league there, we've got both boys and girls who are found in that space and who will be between ages of 18 and 35. We also have got altar servers, and this department was not there for some time in the South African Lutherans, but we have decided to bring it here because it was very important for us to be able to run with the altar servers, because when we look at the history of the church, altar servers were also there, so we have included them, like your Catholic, your Anglican church, and so on. Now, the last one that you see right at the bottom there, I'm not sure if they're able to see it. That's the Sunday school. The Sunday school is where we have all our young children. Now, all these guilds are controlled or are reporting to the office of the priest. Please go back to that slide. Go back, go up again. Yeah, that's right. Thank you very much. Can you enlarge a little bit the other side now? Other side of the yes. Take it to the left. Yes, I want to concentrate on the one that I was talking about here. Make it a little bit bigger so that they see it. The font is very small, but it's fine. Okay. Now every diocese is led by a bishop every time and again. A bishop leads a diocese, and it's got bishops under him. He's got deans under him. In the event, there are deans now, and there are also priests, and all of them are a committee in a diocese. They all report at the bishop's office, and under them, you've got different parishes like you see them. They are led by the priest, they are led by the evangelists, they are led by the other preachers who are lower than the priest and the evangelist. Last but not least, on that picture, we've got guilds that will follow, that will be found in every part of that picture. Take it a little bit higher again. Thank you very much. Now, Lutheran Bapedi Church, shift again a little bit so that we can see it. Yes, thanks very much. Make it a little smaller again. Yes. Now, we talk about the new normal for the Lutheran Bapedi Church. Remember, like all other institutions, the Lutheran Bapedi Church is affected by COVID-19 now. And the church has also adapted to this new normal. We have no other choice but to do that. Now, the LBC has policies that guide the structures of the church within this pandemic. These documents could not be adopted because in 2020, the church could not hold its annual General Assembly. So it is left to the respective church leaders to ensure that their churches function in as, take it a little to the side a little bit, it's not visible there, not to the left, in a safe and productive environment. Now, the churches operate and function under protocols and guidelines of the government. LBC aims to have more youth-focused programs that accommodate their lifestyle and consider their needs. Encouragement of pastoral support from the church. Encouragement of pastoral support from the church as the demand of pastoral services will increase during this time. Hygiene and social distancing is a priority, although it is difficult in dire socio-economic circumstances that most LBC communities function in. In other words, we find ourselves in this dilemma of COVID-19, but we are trying by all means to deal with it, although we are assisted by making sure that we don't go outside the regulations of the COVID-19 as indicated by the South African government, in particular, Department of Health. The Lutheran Bapedi Church is recognized and respected throughout South Africa. It has a rich history that is culminating of the development of South African geographic, culture, and economic background. South African Constitution does not recognize Christianity exclusively, and those who are from South Africa would understand this, in an attempt to create inclusiveness in a rainbow nation. To this end, we, the Lutheran Bapedi Church, continues to contribute to the elevation of Christianity in South Africa for future generations. The establishment and continuation of LBC today is indicative of its ability to withstand the tests of time. Our membership is voluntary, of course, and we recognize that many LBC members are from legacy families. However, 40% of new members join organically annually. LBC boasts a culture of inclusiveness based on our historic nature of marrying both African tradition and European or missionary practices and beliefs. To this end, we are accommodating other religions while we embrace the fundamental Christian values. In other words, don't go out of the Christian values all the time. We recognize that we operate in a diverse society and therefore do not tolerate any bias or discrimination. Lastly, the LBC also contributes financially and otherwise in various non-profit organizations that are aligned to our mission of creating a fruitful and sustainable LBC. Professor would also remember that when they visited me, we took them to some of the areas that we are supporting, and they are not necessarily Lutheran Bapedi Church members, but they are found in the society in which we live, and we should make sure that we take care of them, even in this financial status that we find ourselves in. I thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Reverend Mookeletsi, for this impressive and very informative presentation. You convinced me that you are really African independent church by preserving the tradition where you come from, where your church come from, the Lutheran mission tradition, preserving that tradition, but integrating in this tradition and practices what is coming from the African background, African cultural and religious background, integrating them these elements in the liturgy, in the theology, in the organizational structure of your church. And my next discussion with Professor Sibanga Kumalo in Pietermaritzburg, in that discussion, I would like to try to convince him too, that you are really an independent church. But now the floor is open for questions, for comments, for discussion. Perhaps one could also say it's a kind of an independent church as a hybrid church in a very modern or postmodern sense. This integration, I think, is very interesting, which you are realizing in your church. I see Deidre.
Yes, thank you.
Coming.
Thank you, Prof. Can I speak?
Yeah, please come in.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Reverend, for that insightful presentation. Now, of course, I've lost some what you have said, but if my question you've already addressed that, please excuse me. What I've gotten from your presentation, your focus is, of course, you bring life and order, life and work, and faith and order together. That's what it sounds like. Two very important pillars, particularly driven from the World Council of Churches. What I'm also wanted to be asking in terms of that, how do you, I can hear that you've been focusing a lot on the life and work in terms of the community settings of the congregations and so forth. How does that, and of course, you know, with our relationship with God, the intimate relationship with God, it stretched much further than our own congregations in our own societies, but it also reached out to the communities that's also impoverished due to other reasons and so forth. So how does your congregation then integrate with those communities in terms of developing purposes and so forth? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Deidre. Perhaps you give your answer immediately, or shall we listen to the next two colleagues who want to raise questions? What do you prefer?
I prefer to directly speak to the one that has just been mentioned, so that we deal with it.
Then please.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, the first part was just comments, but maybe let me answer the question of, you are right, you are in impoverished communities, very impoverished, very, very much. But we make it a point that we communicate with the communities, attend church in the buildings only every weekend. There are every time and again, every month, twice or so, go out into the community, make some presentations and preachings to the people outside of the church. In other words, we sometimes walk around, have some visits to the different areas. Example, we always visit the areas where we find people who are sick, maybe in the hospitals or something. We go there and preach to people and talk to people about the word, so that every time they come back to the community, maybe if they are staying in the hospital, if they're admitted, then they can come back and join us, or be able to know that Christ is the King all the time. So we go out every time to the community to go and speak to them about the power of Christianity and Christ in particular in our case.
Thank
so we
you.
do communicate
in terms of development?
Sorry?
And in terms of, thank you for the response. And my second question in terms of the development, reaching out to communities in terms of development.
development. Yes, while we are reaching out to them, what we do is, as we preach, we also go to an extent of attending them as individuals. For instance, some of them you find they've got some social problems. There is a department specifically here that is called socio, that has to do with social issues. That department, that department's got people who are going direct into specific challenges of the people. As we speak to the people out there, they go directly to them and talk to them as individuals in terms of either psychological or social issues. That's how we touch base with them every time and again.
Thank you. Then the next who raised his hand is Fenyo. Fenyo, come in, please.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you for the presentation. It's also quite fascinating that more than him being a reverend, he's also a Khosana to me, as I'm a member of the Bafokeng tribe. But Khosana, I do just have a few questions as well that I wanted to first ask. The first one is just about, is there at this point a relationship with the traditional European missionary church at this point? So does the Lutheran Bapedi ever have any sort of relation with the traditional missionary at this point, or any other European-based church? And then also want to ask that even the name Lutheran Bapedi, could that be changed at any point, given that it is no longer centralized to the Bapedi area or the Limpopo area? Would there be a change to the name to reflect the inclusivity of the greater South Africa? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Kwena. He understands you when I say Kwena. I'm talking to him in our language now. Thanks very much, Kwena. We don't have any European-based touch. We don't have any touch with the European communities at all. That's why we are called independent church. But you are right. There are continual discussions of changing of the name, because in particular, this name has got the history of apartheid, and therefore we're trying to bring it back to, but because the church has scattered so much all over the country, we're trying to bring people back again so that we can decide on the new name as a collective. At the moment, most churches have gone out of us because of financial reasons and so on. So we're actually we're busy at the moment trying to call them back so that we look into the issue of changing the name. Lutheranism will remain, Lutheran will remain, but the Bapedi, we are busy trying to change it because it does not have any meaning anymore in terms of today's situation in this country.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Now I see Xolile Kosi. Please come in.
Thank you very much, Prof. Galan and Dumela Ra. I've just got 3 very short questions that I would like to ask. One pertains to the splits that you have had. We have noticed when the church there was a church split, yes. We have noticed a phenomenon in the southern part of the country that when churches split, they tend to also manage to spread their wings in terms of spreading their mission. In a sense, it became somewhat a growth that allowed them to move in areas where they did not anticipate previously. I would like to find out as to what has been the experience, particularly after the 2 splits. And secondly, that the question of ancestral worship or ancestral veneration, how is that now handled by the Lutheran Church? You mentioned earlier on that used to be the part. Is it still the part? And how is that accommodated? And then linked to that will be in the liturgy itself of the Lutheran Church, seeing that you have managed to break ties with the mother body. Is there any work that's being done to decolonize the liturgy itself so that it does no longer speak of the context in Europe and Germany in specific, but begins to speak to your own present reality. But those were just a few questions there, but thank you very much for a wonderful input tonight.
Thank you very much. The first question on spreading wings, the splits have actually weakened the church instead. Because when they go out of the main or the mother body, when they go away, they start doing it their own way. In other words, they start to move away. Some of them have become now, different churches completely. In other words, they went out of Lutheranism. They went out of the Lutheran way of doing things. And now because of that, we have actually lost them. Some of them have turned into Pentecostal churches because when they go out, now they are independent, they're able to do anything that they want. Most of them are now influenced by other reasons beyond outside the church, and they seem to, we have actually lost most of them. Now with the ancestral worshiping, look, now as it is, we don't practice that anymore in our churches. But we don't go to families to say to them, you can't do that. But in our churches, we make sure that they understand that Christ is the King and Christ is the only one that will make us go to heaven. But you are going to find that in other areas, in other houses, other homesteads, in other houses, some of them will still believe in the ancestral practices. We don't really say no to them, but you make sure that while they're doing that, but they should know about Christ. So it is quite a tussle, to be honest. But as a church, we don't talk anymore about these practices that were there in the past. About liturgy, to be honest, we are independent, but remember, oh, sorry, I haven't mentioned that. During the time when Johannes Venter and our bishop decided to marry and went on with the starting of this church, there were some agreements that were made because the agenda book is used, the liturgy book, and also the hymn books and the catechisms. All those books are still used even today. In other words, while we are independent, but literature-wise or liturgy-wise, we're still depending on the mainstream of the evangelical Lutheran Church. Although in some instances we have developed our own literature. For instance, the lectionary itself, we have created our own lectionary, and of course it commensurates with what all the other churches are doing. I remember the last time when we spoke about it in the conference, that's when we requested the English Lutheran Church to assist us in that regard, and they've done such a great job. They even went to an extent of saying, if you don't mind, we could use the lectionary every time and again. Of course, to cut corners, it was simple for us to follow it, and we're doing that every time and again.
Thank you, Reverend. Now, the last question or comment is coming from Catherine Ganira. Please come in. Is she? Catherine?
Yes. Hello.
Hello. Okay.
Yes, I want to comment on Bishop Titus. He has really presented, Reverend,
yes.
You have really brought up an issue that has been giving me a problem. I'm a reverend as well. And my church at the moment, we are kind of divided. My question is, what made the church, the Lutheran Church, be divided at this time? Two, you have already answered my second question about where are these other Lutheran members. You said they have dispersed themselves. to other denominations. But what was the really main cause of this, the division of the church at this time?
Thank you very much. Yes, of course, the split is weakening us every time and again. It is found in many churches. It's not only in the Lutheran Bapedi church. But the main cause, to be honest here, is the issue of finances. To be honest, is the issue of finances. Secondary, so the issue of status, but primarily is the issue of finances. You see, the church does not have any money, does not have any income from anywhere else. We depend on what the congregations contribute on an annual basis. In terms of the parish, on a monthly basis. Now, what it simply means is that the little that we have accepted from the different dioceses or in the national coffers, that money should be shared within all the structures of the church, and the budget becomes very, very cumbersome for the church to run. Now, because of that, priests would feel his own church is able to take care of him without the national. Why keep to the national? Then he takes his bit and moves away and start controlling it from his own side. But the main problem here is finances. If the church can have financial support, I think we'll be able to run it properly and fairly and be able to move our visions and missions. Otherwise, you are not going anywhere with this church in as far as that is concerned. But we are fighting tooth and nail anyway to see to it that we keep the glowing splinter burning.
Yeah, thank you, Reverend. Our time is running out, and we have to come to the end. Thank you very much for your great presentation and for answering all the interesting questions. Thank you for raising all these questions. I'm so keen to listen again to you, Reverend, and that we get again the opportunity to invite you for a presentation. And I hope so much that that will happen in Berlin. And then we take a walk to the old building of the Berlin mission in the Georgenkirchstraße. I see the director of the Berlin mission is also present with us. And perhaps, Martin, perhaps you want to say some words to...
Yes, please. I'm not the director. I'm not the director of Berlin Mission. Good evening. I'm the African secretary of Berlin Mission.
Ah, that's okay.
I'm overwhelmed to meet you, Titus, here, General Secretary. Yes. I don't know where to start and where to end with my questions. So I thought it is better to write you a mail and then we can intensify our contact.
Oh, yes.
Because I don't know, because, you know, I have been here since 3 years. I don't know where and when in the time of Berlin Mission and your church we had any contact to each other. I have no idea. I didn't find anything in the files. You know, we have only some historical articles about you, but I didn't find any comment, any file that there was a relationship between us. Do you know that? Do you know more about it?
Maybe you need more to, like somebody said earlier, that you need to say in the next set of talks, you could be able to engage much on that. I will also speak to you through that because it's quite a number of issues that I have to raise on that issue. Maybe later on we can talk about it.
Yes, that would be very fine. Thank you very much for your presentation, and I hope we will really try to exchange some ideas and by email, because now the time is over. Yeah. So I'm very happy to meet you here by Zoom, and next time when you are in Berlin, you are, of course, you're very much welcomed in our mission. Then we can discuss properly.
Yeah. That is what we That is what we hope. Thank you to all of you. Thank you again, Reverend, for this great event which you made possible for us. And now have a nice evening, and I hope we see each other again tomorrow in the next sessions, parallel sessions, plenary sessions, and that we continue with our interesting conference.